Speaker, in the government's 2020 budget, it read, and I'm going to quote, "The province doubled funding in the Ontario Autism program to $600 million annually, beginning in 2019-2020. Mr. Speaker, the former Minister of Children, Community and Social Services told the House 7 times that $600 million would be spent on autism services. Mr. Speaker, the current minister has told the House no less than 14 times that autism services would be funded to the tune of $600 million. Well, Mr. Speaker, can the Premier explain to the House why the official public accounts directly contradict his ministers and his own budget and show that the government has only spent $434 million in 2019-2020?
The Associate Minister for Children and Women's Issues.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the member for the question. The Minister of Children, Community and Social Services recently, in his recent statement on September 3rd, announced that our government will be spending a combined $1.2 billion to support children and youth on the autism spectrum over the 2019-2020 and 2021 fiscal years. Last December, our government committed to providing interim one-time funding for families who were on the wait list. Those who were on the wait list by March 31st of 2020 have submitted their applications for one-time funding, have received their payment. We continue to issue payments as families register for the programs and complete their application forms. Many of these payments will not be reported in public accounts until next year, as the payments to families are being reported in the year in which they were made. The past 6 months dealing with COVID-19 have been difficult for many families, but even more challenging for those families who have been home with no access to their normal supports. And that's why the ministry has ensured that families still have 90 days from their date of invitation letter to accept the funding. Thank you.
And the supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, families with children with autism have been betrayed once again. I'm not sure why we would believe that they're going to spend more next year when they didn't spend everything they told us they would spend last year, Mr. Speaker. The lack of support for these families is compounded the already precarious situation that they find themselves in as a result of COVID-19. Parents in my riding have told me that they find themselves stuck in limbo, Mr. Speaker, because of failure to access the supports that they need, because the government isn't providing the funding for those supports, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, to the Premier,
order.
Why should parents trust anything this government is telling them about supporting autism? And when will the government stop shortchanging these families and give them the desperate supports that they need?
The Associate Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the member for your supplementary. Mr. Speaker, the member's opposite plan for the Ontario Autism Program failed to respond to the growing needs for autism services in this province. While the former government was in power and that member sat around the cabinet table along with Stephen Del Duca, the waitlist for autism services skyrocketed in this province. According to the Financial Accountability Officer, between 2012 and 2018, the autism waitlist grew by a staggering 47.8% per year. Our government undertook the precedented step of doubling the Ontario Autism Program's funding, and we will be spending a combined $1.2 billion over the 1920 and 2021 fiscal years, as more than twice as many children are receiving supports as we transition to the new needs-based program designed by the autism community.